Okay, part two. Um, Now what we want to do is I'm going to replace this guy, okay? And I'm going to replace it with this guy. So how do we do that? We need to get a selection around this guy that's going to be able to allow us to isolate. And that includes all of this stuff in here that's blue and the open bits around the leaves here, okay? So to do that, it's really hard. It can get really complicated, you know, if we try to just use magic wand and try to select in here, because it's going to be hard to get within here without completely obliterating your the foliage, right? And then you have to try to get really intricate in here. That's too much work. You could lasso tool and hand paint some of this, but that would take forever. So this is where we're going to use our channels, and we're going to make an alpha channel from that. So let me show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so we come over here to channels, and what we're looking at is red, green, and blue. What we're looking for is a channel that has the most defined edges from the sky and the border, like this. Okay, see how that is? That looks the best to me at this point. See how here the values kind of are close? And so this is going to be a little bit harder to pull apart. Okay, this one, it looks like it's probably going to be more problematic. This works best. Okay, and let me just show you why. Okay, the objective is we're going to take this channel, we're going to duplicate it, and ultimately what we want to end up with is these kind of channels that end up just pure black and white. This is what we're going to do. Okay, the idea is we're going to take one of these channels, and then we're going to use levels, and we're going to start manipulating it so we get a clean black and white. Okay, so now basically what we do is we take this channel, we drag down over the new alpha channel icon. Okay, now it automatically highlights this layer. Okay, so this is going to be a little tricky in some ways, and some ways it's going to be very easy. Okay, so first thing is I always, just as a rule of thumb, immediately go to levels. It's under image adjustments, and it's levels, and it's Command L. Usually I would just use the keyboard shortcuts, but I'm doing it the long way so you guys can see it here. Okay, so it's Command L. I start by moving the black slider over to increase the contrast edge. But when I'm doing it the whole time, I'm paying attention to all of this down here to see if I'm losing the refined edge of the foliage. Okay. If I move the white slider over, it moves some of this, it makes it brighter. So that can be helpful. Okay. Move this a little bit darker. And so this is a good start. I'm going to hit OK. So if I take my lasso tool, I can actually grab a section like this. And then I could do levels again. This time I'm going to do Command L. Now I can make this side darker. Okay, just go ahead and hit OK. Deselect is Command D. Now I go to my brush. Okay, I want to make sure I'm using black. Okay, when you're on alpha channels, when it paints, even if you picked a color like this, it's always going to show you in a range of black, white, or gray. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm on 100% black. And then I'm going to paint in all of this little tiny bits here. All of this down here, I already know that this is going to be black, so I can just go right across with my brush. Okay. Okay, this is where it starts getting tricky, but I can tell there's about the edge is up to about here. So all of this I feel comfortable with just going solid black. Okay, so I just fill it in with a brush. There are other keyboard shortcuts I'll give you guys later on, but for now this is what you're going to do, just the brush. Okay. Now, come across, I'm getting closer to the edge again in here. And here's something I want you to see. The reason why it shows you in red when we turn this on is because when you're doing your masking, okay, it allows you to see if you're punching through the holes. Like where it's red, again, this is actually protection. It's actually in reverse right now. At some point, we're going to flip it. But see how it's red up here? That means the sky is not white yet. You want to be pure color of whatever that photo is. Or if I turn it like this, you'll see all that gray is why it's showing up red. Okay, so here's a little trick I'm going to show you guys. Okay, if you take your lasso tool, okay, I'm going to draw freehand here. I'm going to go as far as I can, all the way up to the edges, about like this. And actually, I didn't want to grab that little bit of tree, but that's okay. See how you get the top here. Looks like it. I'll use minus. Okay, so how do I minus that out? Hold Option, and it allows you to cut out of your shape. Okay, so here's this is how you fill a channel or a layer. Okay, if you look at your keyboard, there's an Option key and there's a Command key. The Option key allows you to manipulate your foreground color. Command key fills with your background color, which is white. Okay, so if I want to fill this area with white, I would use my Command key and tap Delete or Backspace. Okay, if I wanted to fill it with black, I would have used Option and Delete. It doesn't matter what the color is in those particular sections for foreground and background. Okay, I could have had red or green if we were not on alpha channels, and it would show up. But because we're in alpha channels, it's going to show up in variations of black, white, and gray. And so now I have this kind of blocked in. Now we have to start getting this tiny little stuff out of here. Okay, so again, how am I going to do this? So I'm going to take my brush and show you a little trick here. When you go up here on your brush, there's a blend mode. If you turn this to overlay, the way this works is whatever color you're painting with, so if I'm painting with black, if I have anything that's a mid-gray or a light gray, what it's going to do is going to take that black and make it darker if I keep painting. Okay, I don't really want to go to black. I want to go to white. So I'm going to shift it to white. Okay, so it's going to be now with the same brush using overlay, it takes the mid-grays and makes them lighter. So if I keep hitting with a brush stroke, it essentially is, again, turning it to white, and it's going to allow me to create the contrast edge here that I'm looking for. Okay, so I come in here and brush down. I'm just trying to separate that edge of the foliage as much as I can. And here's the thing, it makes a difference when you do one stroke and then you pick up your stroke and go back down. Okay, so I kind of went over this whole thing. Now I'm going to go back, and if I press again, it opens up a little bit more. So now I'm just tapping, just a little bit. Just a little bit in here. Okay, so see this, I want that to be black. I believe I want it to be black. Let's just do a double check here. Okay, so I turn this on, and you see what I have. It's pretty close to what I got. Okay, now, so what I can do is go to levels, and if I need to, I can pump this up a little bit more. Okay. If I shift this back to black and just tap here, that'll fill in. If I have little pieces on the edge here that I feel like it's not smooth enough, I'm using black, and if there's any little bits of gray in there, it'll go to black. See this in here? I don't like that, so I'm going to shift X to go back to white. Say I'm on white. Separate that. Okay. So this is good enough for now, I think, to show you guys the main thing of what we're doing here. Okay. Alright, so now, as you can see, this is just like the alpha mask. We essentially had in that Zulu image, right? You see it's isolated black and white now. So the objective is, because I want to put a different background, I'm going to basically do Command I to invert the selection. Okay, so white is the live area. So if you hold Command, put your cursor right over this, you tap, there's a marquee selection around the whole white area. I highlight the RGB layer. It's highlighted. I now click on the Layers tab, and when I'm here, I have basically the option. I can make a layer mask, or I can do a Command J to put it on its own layer. So I'll show you both ways. Command J basically just cuts the image out and puts it on its own layer. Simple, straightforward. Okay, it duplicates whatever is inside your selection. The other way, okay, come back over here, Command Tap, is if I'm on this layer. Okay, see the button down here? There's a white square with a black circle in the middle. I tap on it, and it makes a layer mask. It basically gives you the same visual representation, except there's a mask. See that black area on this icon? It's cutting out the sky, so all we're seeing is the bottom. So I'm essentially getting the same thing. The only difference is when you have a layer mask, you can always go back and manipulate and paint in on this, and it'll definitely make things. Well, it gives you the ability to go back and forth if you don't like what you have. If you do a Command J and it's isolated like this, it's pretty much knocked out. But remember, you also have your channels over here if you had to go back to it. Okay. Now, let me show you that too. Whenever you're on a layer that has a layer mask, if you come in your channels, you'll notice it'll say Layer 0 Mask, but you'll notice italicized. That's basically letting you know if you see an alpha channel in here italicized, that's a layer mask. So watch, if I go on layer 1 and I go back to channels, you'll see it's gone now. And that it only shows up when you're actually on that layer. Okay, so that's that part of it. So now what we would do, okay, I'm going to go over here to the photo, select all, copy, go here and paste my image. Okay, so as you can see, it's dropped in behind that top photo. Okay, now one other thing I'm going to show you. On layer 1, here's the beauty of if you do the Command J method to copy and duplicate the layer up, is that I'm going to show you a trick. See how there's a little bit of this kind of halo around the edge of the pixel information? This only works when it's a layer where the pixels are cut out. This will not work, again, will not work with the layer mask method. So if you go up here, see it's deleted out, I go Layer, Matting to Fringe. Type in a number. If you're working with 300 dpi files, I type in a high number. If you're working with really low resolution files, you might be around 2 or 3. What 300 dpi, I'm around 5. Okay, so if I click OK, it basically, if you notice, this went away. So I'm Command Z so you can see it. See how it clipped out some of that residual bits and pieces on there? Okay, so now you basically have a different sky. The beauty is you could reposition your sky however you want, right? So obviously I wouldn't have those trees competing, but I would have something like this. And then typically what happens is with the top layer, you will begin to manipulate the color to make it blend into each other. Okay, so that's the main idea. And the reason why, again, we have these layer masks and the channels is because it allows us to isolate and pull things out of a photo. It allows us to put photo texture into another image. It's used for a variety of different things, but very important to understand how to use.